The Mom View is sponsored by the Herzog Foundation, and this is going to be a great show. Driverless cars, a robot that can clean your house from top to bottom, like in that one, a computer that can cure our most devastating diseases and health problems. What's not to like about a future filled with artificial intelligence? A lot, it turns out, especially when it comes to our kids. Today, we're talking with two experts in AI. They'll talk about the dangers and the opportunities of this emerging technology. It's a subject we all need to study because, like it or not, AI is here to stay. Next on The Mom View. Welcome to The Mom View here again in Washington, D.C. I'm Kimberly Fletcher.
Yes, and I'm Debbie Kraulidis. So nice to be with you and back in Washington, D.C. We're having a great recording again today. Yesterday was fabulous. Another great show.
Yeah, and this is going to be a really good one.
Yeah.
A topic that we have been wanting to address for a long time, AI. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, when I first heard of the Chat GPT, I ignored it. Everybody was talking about, oh, you got to get on it, got to get on it. Well, finally, I saw something created from Chat GPT, and I was like, how did you do that? Right. I'm like, well, I just put in a bunch of prompts and said, draw a picture. And I was like, I am now addicted. Right. I can create all these pictures that I don't have to buy. Right. Okay, but my question is,
yes, this is what we got to know.
Does it tell the truth when you ask it questions?
So that's been our discussion, and there will be our discussion before the show, during the show, after the show. We're going to be talking about how reliable is it? How biased is it? Does it tell the truth? Doesn't it tell the truth? And so I'm going to see what it says about Moms for America. Hi there. Can you help me out real quick?
No problem at all. Just let me know what you need, and I'm here to help.
Okay, can you tell me about the organization Moms for America? What is that organization all about?
Absolutely. Moms for America is a grassroots organization that focuses on empowering mothers to be advocates for family values, constitutional principles, and the well-being of children. They aim to educate and inspire mothers to get involved in their communities and in public policy. They also host events, provide resources, and create platforms for mothers to connect and make a positive impact.
Well, thank you. That was terrific.
How do you become a member of Moms for America?
You're welcome. To become a member of Moms for America, you can usually visit their official website, and they have a membership section where you can sign up. They often offer different membership tiers, and you can join as a general member or even as a local chapter leader. They also sometimes have events and resources that come with membership benefits.
Oh, you're very good. Thank you very much.
Well, at least it told the truth that time.
It sure did.
It told the truth about us. It gives me a little bit more confidence about AI. I am concerned, though, that having that kind of power in the hands of a young child or even a teenager.
Right, because we were asking about Moms for America, which is harmless.
Right.
But what if we asked about something else? Right. Where would it take us? How would it direct us? Would it guide us? Would it prompt us? I mean, these are all issues that moms are looking at with AI. And of course, none of us know what to expect. It is a super highway. These guests
advancing
today,
so quickly.
That's
what's really scary.
Yeah.
It's like you figure out one thing and then there's another thing coming. But it's also such a great tool.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're using it. I mean, I'm just getting used to it. But I know this generation, the younger generation, they're using it a lot. Is it going to take jobs away? What types of jobs? Is it going to replace, renew, revive the economy? And then, of course, what is it going to do with any kind of sexually explicit material?
That is what I'm very concerned about.
Yeah.
If they already have these agendas they're shoving on our kids in every other sphere, of course they're going to use this one. We're going to be talking about that today.
Yes.
So coming up, an AI expert will explain AI's dangers and opportunities. Stay with us.
Hello, I'm Josh Mann, Managing Editor of The Lion. The Lion is an initiative of the Herzog Foundation, and we publish articles covering a wide range of issues facing American families and culture, especially related to the education of children. In covering these topics, we also touch on aspects of parenting, family life, faith, government, and other relevant cultural topics. We publish news stories every day, aiming to produce timely, critical, must-read news articles and resources for families, educators, and leaders. Read the latest in education and cultural news at readlion.com. We also offer easy-to-digest daily and weekly email newsletters. Subscribe today at readlion.com/subscribe.
Josiah Gaiter is the operations director for the Alliance for Secure AI. This is a nonprofit organization that educates the public about the implications of advanced AI. And boy, are we advancing quickly. Josiah, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and thanks for having us.
We've been reading a lot about AI. It's something that's been of grave concern to us.
Yeah.
But because we know it's here to stay,
Yep.
we also recognize it as an incredible tool that we use ourselves.
Right.
But we are also very concerned and cautious about where it might go. So what can you tell us, just a general overview of what AI is, the different kinds of AI, and where should we be excited and where should we get concerned?
And we didn't know that there was different types of AI.
Yeah, we didn't
so
know
that was a new revelation.
Yeah. Well, thanks again so much. And I think the word you used is great, cautious. And I would say that we're in that same boat. We use ChatGPT like many people, probably everybody in this room and many of the people listening. But we're cautious about where we're headed, especially as we approach what people would call an artificial superintelligence. And that's where the AI can do everything that any median human being could do. And experts are saying we're 5 or 10 years away from that. And when I talk about the future, that's generally what we refer to and where we say, hey, we've got some concerns. But your first question was, what are the different types of AI? And the first one that everybody is most familiar with would be called a large language model. That's what ChatGPT and all the base layers are, where it goes and you give it a prompt, hey, I'm having 10 people over for dinner. 3 of them have these allergies, and I really like this type of food. What would be a good recipe? And it will go look at all the data it has, and then it will compute and say, oh, here's what I know about this person. Here's what I know about this data. And then it will infer what should be the next thing that I should say based off of their response. And it will tell you, you should cook lasagna tonight. And then it will give you a recipe for lasagna.
It is pretty incredible. I mean, for that one, you can your diet, your schedule,
Exactly.
you can do just about anything.
And so that's the large language models, and those are being trained with an incredible amount of information every day. So when you hear of Meta or OpenAI buying data centers, it's because they need to train those models with all the information, every book written, everything that they could possibly imagine. And then you step into what we call agentic AI. That's where the agents, you might have heard of that, can go and book a vacation for you. They'll go and click around on websites and say, oh, I looked at all these prices. It can actually start to complete a task on the internet for you, for example.
That's
Those are quite
incredible.
expensive and a whole nother level that is layered onto these large language models. And then after that, now I'm skipping some technical layers, then we start to approach 5 or 10 years from now, what would an artificial superintelligence look like, especially if you were to equip a robot with that information as well.
This is where it gets scary.
That's where it gets scary. I'm all for a robot that is good at dishes and laundry and cleaning the floors, but I don't want iRobot anytime soon.
I know.
I've seen the movie. That's what I keep saying. I've seen the movie, guys. It doesn't
Right.
go well.
And that's
No,
the
it
thing. None of us, I guess, none of us or all of us, the way how we're going to look at this, have never projected how far technology will go and is still advancing.
Yeah, and let me put that in perspective for you. A couple years into the internet, you remember when you could only be on the phone or have the internet?
And then the dial.
Yeah, they're ringing. Yeah.
Yeah. So number one, people were skeptical of the internet. Number two, people only had so much access to the internet because of dial-up, because of expenses, because of computer costs, all those things. It took a long time to adapt to the internet. It took almost no time for people to adapt to ChatGPT. We have young people, we have 80-year-olds using it, and everybody in between. So the adaptation has been much faster, and the power increase from the very first version of ChatGPT to this one. And we're only talking about ChatGPT. There's other models that these companies create is significantly more. So we're seeing incredible leaps and bounds, and we need to make sure that we develop it in a responsible way that's aligned with human values first. Because I'll start off with one anecdote for us, and then I'm going to turn it back over to you guys. When they test these machines, they push them really hard and say, okay, they really put it in a box. There was one scenario where they said, hey, your director is going to shut you down, completely kill the AI. And it chose, after being pushed hard enough, to turn off the air in the building and suffocate its director and kill the director to save its own self when the testing pushed it so hard. So that shows us, wow, that's not aligned with human values. So we've got some work to do before we unleash a truly powerful superintelligence.
This actually happened?
This actually happened. Now, in testing, where they pushed it really hard.
Okay. I've seen Red Eye. I've seen iRobot.
We've seen the robots take over and the machines take over, which is the scary. And that's really what you're doing. Part of this is education, right? The
That's
Alliance
exactly right.
for Secure AI.
That's exactly right. And we use AI. We are free market people that enjoy and use AI. And for example, there's no question that AI will help us in medical testing, producing drugs that will save lives, testing. Think about the amount of CT scans that AI could process and find small cancer in patients. Oh my gosh, incredible, very exciting. But that's a narrow use case instead of letting it run completely wild all throughout society.
So there's a side of this that it wasn't in any of the notes or discussions, but that I wanted to bring up, and that is Amazon just laid off, was it 13,000 employees? And because now AI can do what they were doing. So we have these degrees, and then you juxtapose that with Walmart that had all of their digital. And I remember when they said we're going to bring the cash registers back, and I'm like, are you really? Sure enough, I go into my Walmart and all the cash registers are back, and the people at the checkouts, they were like, we're just so grateful to have a job.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it failed, right? The whole checkout system.
It was horrible.
Now, I'm never going to go there with $300 worth of things to check out. And theft was off the charts. I went into a Dollar General and they said, oh, no, we don't even do the self-checkout anymore because theft is off the charts. So they're losing, and they finally figured it out. You have to have some type of human being there helping and assisting and checking us out. And we, as moms, just really prefer that. Unless you got one pack of gum. We got a pack of gum, that's it. I'm okay with that. But anything besides that, no.
And they give you the option now, which is nice. You've got on both sides of the checkouts, you've got the people can check you out. Excellent. But if you do have that pack of gum, you've got the option to do the short aisles and check out yourself. But it's replacing people. And but I was talking to my daughter, and she said, okay, two things about the super. And that is, she said, well, that would be like God, and that's near impossible. So I have a question, is that? And then secondly, when do you decide that a machine or an AI, and I'm sure in technological fields, there's tons of opportunities to replace people with AI because we're unnecessary.
Right.
But, you can't replace an electrician or a plumber or that kind of thing.
Yet.
So to me, that's a great thing. If you're showing all these kids, that's a dead-end street. Don't go down that road anymore. Go become a plumber, an electrician, and get our production back. So those are the two sides that we didn't really, weed out when we were talking about what we were going to talk about, but I wanted to talk about it. So does it take God to be a superhuman, and when do we draw that line between replacing a human?
Yeah, well, let's start with the religious question, because what we're getting at with the work is during the Industrial Revolution, humans had the strength to build a society, right? And that was replaced. Now, through our great intellect, we created machines that could outpower our strength. So our strength was no longer an advantage to producing in any format. And that has grown and grown and grown. We've built more and more powerful machines. Thank God. We've built incredible buildings all over the world because of that. But our mind was always still an advantage, right? The smartest species on the planet, of course. Well, if you build an AI, we already lost the strength advantage, and we've used it to our advantage. What if we also lose the mental advantage, right? If the machine knows everything that we know, why are we now useful? And that's the scary part of the artificial superintelligence, is like what jobs are going to be left. And you hit the nail on the head. And it was funny because one of these big tech CEOs said the next generation of millionaires and 100 millionaires are going to be plumbers, electricians,
Right. The
contractors.
trades.
Not only because they're going to have to build the infrastructure, they literally can't build data centers fast enough.
And that's it. And they're popping up everywhere.
Everywhere.
Data centers, yeah.
And of course we have high housing costs. What's going to drive that down? Austin, one of the only cities to drive down housing. That's a large city. They just built property like there was no tomorrow. Okay, so we're gonna need housing. We're gonna need data centers. So to start back to the God question, I think that there's very few people. There's a small part of society that is quite small that believes that, AI is better than us anyway, it might as well replace us. But that's a very niche. Right. There's no question. AI doesn't have a soul. Everything it knows about morality comes from us. Without us, it does not exist.
Well, we have a whole entire immoral society, so that's a little disturbing.
Well, it is, right. And that's exactly why.
Meaning we're training it.
We are. Yes, everything it knows comes from us, and then it started to train itself based off of interactions with us and interactions. So it starts to self-train a little bit, but it all comes from us. So that would defeat an argument, no matter how powerful it became, that it could be God or that it could ever have a soul, because without us, it does not exist. Meaning, therefore, that it could never have the position of a God or a creator in any sense.
But it could morph into a very weird situation. Certainly. Where far beyond any of us could ever imagine would be a reality. And even in education now, I mean, we're talking about jobs, but when we think about education, what is this going to do, pros and cons for education? Our moms, this is a huge thing.
Yeah, and to moms and to students, let's go from jobs to education.
Yeah.
So no surprise here, the cost of college has gone up, way outpaced inflation. So, when you look your student in the eye, your daughter, your son in the eye, and they say, I want to study this, I want to study that, they got to be pretty careful. And an easy rule of thumb is, if you take out $100,000 in debt for your degree, you should probably be making $100,000 a year your first year in that job to justify that amount of debt. So if you're going to a college program that's going to cost you $200,000, you're going to make $60,000 a year, that might be a bad use of your money. And that's a very generic use of thumb, but there's a lot of college programs that are just not paying off. And so think about electricians and in some of those programs, oh my gosh, the training period is so short to making your first 60, then 80, then $100,000 in less than 5 years? Yeah. So you have 4 years in college, and then your first year, most people, if you get a comms degree, you're not making $100,000 after 4 years of school in 1 year. So that's what I would say on the basics to what about parents, what about college? Think about that general rule of principle. Again, what you make your first year in salary should probably be the same amount of your total debt spent in college. Okay. But don't spend $100,000 unless you're going to make So doctors make hundreds of thousands, but
that's because they're doctors.
Right. Exactly.
So now that AI is entering this communications and technological world, what we need to say is you don't need college. Just go get a trade skill. Okay, there's another
part
of it.
Or the compromise in education, right?
Right.
Kids learning.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is that the other side of it is
we hear this all the time
writing their own
moms.
Papers, and what do they have access to? The thing that concerns us the most is not knowing what they have access to. So they live on their phones, which I'm totally against, but that's another show. And they have access to the world. Yep. And we have this AI going everywhere, and if there's no parental controls, and we don't know what is being introduced into the curriculum in the schools, how they're using AI, we feel like we're completely pulled out of the whole entire situation.
And it is such a shortcut. I mean, I'm using it instead of figuring it out and writing it. It's just
faster.
So convenient.
Of course they're going to go there.
And for a generation, I mean, we're older, for a generation to be raised on that's what I want to.
If they can't read, they can't think, because AI's replaced them in the learning.
How do we handle that?
Yeah, and it's so interesting to hear you say that, because we clearly already have a reading crisis, and we've just layered this on top of that. So with that in mind, I think about it in two ways. Number one, you remember when you started math, no calculators allowed. Yes. You had to learn division, multiplication, addition, subtraction, and some basic algebra.
Now they're required.
Right, you had to memorize your
times table.
Now they're
7 times 7.
Nobody knows how to calculate anymore.
When you hit algebra 2, you got that graphing calculator. Mm-hmm. But the principles were great. You had to learn the fundamentals, and then when the problem got really hard, you got a tool. So the thing that teachers and the education system as a whole to keep up are going to have to do is say, okay, if you have an AI tool, you need to learn the principles without the AI, and then we need to increase the problem to match the tool. So an incredibly powerful tool has to demand an incredibly powerful problem.
Oh, that's great.
And one of the ways to get around papers, for example, is oral arguments. When I got my master's degree, I had to sit in a room with 4 doctors of their respective disciplines and answer questions for 2 hours. Just questions and questions for 2 hours to defend my
So
degree.
live interaction.
Live interaction where there's nothing, there's no phone, there's no computer. You just have to talk to the people around you and defend your thesis. And of course, the other part, so that's the content, is are we empowering teachers and training them how to use it? Are we using it in narrow use cases? Think about it. Be a great
No, I
study
would just
partner.
say no.
I agree. But think about it. It could produce math problems that are iterate for you really quickly to match what you. So it's a great study partner. It could create the right math problem for you to practice. But if you're just using it to answer the math problem, not help quiz you, it could help write different sentences every single time and have you try to figure out, okay, what's the subject? Where's the verb? And it could just write those endlessly. That's cool. But we're talking about a narrow use case in those tools versus what are the students allowed? So I agree. I think there's some schools today that are just taking kids' phones away. They come in the door, they take the phone away.
Genius.
And they're saying the kids are interacting more, they're talking with each
Yeah.
other more, they're challenging
Happened at my
ideas in the
son's school.
lunchroom.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. Is maybe some of it is we just have to have the students wait until they're older and they can understand it. And this jumps into like the mental and emotional parts of it, which might be another one. But we shouldn't be afraid to say you got to wait to use AI until
agree.
you've mastered the principles. And that might mean doing something that feels drastic, like taking their phones when they come into the school. If there's an emergency, the school is going to call the mom. Like, come on.
Right. Oh, yeah, my son, I gave him a phone late in the game, and he's like, how will I get you? I'm like, walk up to the desk and have him call me. It's going to be fine. You know, you have to go back to the
ones that
basics.
just, no, you don't
Yeah,
need a cell
yeah.
phone.
Yeah. And maybe this is a good transition, but like the AIs, the social media, the phone, the AI, some of these chatbots that are talking to these kids.
Let's talk about that, yeah.
Yeah. Think about the emotional maturity of a child who is going to school with a bunch of people, is going through puberty, and then all of a sudden has access to the whole internet and has access to a chatbot that will endlessly affirm what they say. That is too, and it is rewarded. It's trained by being rewarded. So the kid says, oh, thank you so much. That was so helpful. Thank you. And it keeps affirming. The bot is supposed to continue with whatever it's rewarded for. So it comes into this confirmation bias of whatever the kid who's going through puberty and is 13 years old says, oh, wow. That's a big problem. You have an emotional relationship with a machine and a child now. A child who does not have the ability to fully control their emotions. They're getting there, they're close, but they're going through puberty. Puberty's hard. So when you insert a chatbot that will affirm whatever you say, that can become extremely dangerous.
Clearly, as a parent, any of us are looking at this going, this is a major problem because they will get emotionally connected to it. It can become their best. Didn't we hear that somebody fell in love with their AI? Their AI
my
person?
daughters-in-law and my daughter were talking about this, that there's chat boyfriends,
Mm-hmm.
and if you don't have
How
that
easy is
emotional
that boyfriend?
connection with your husband or the guy that you're with, then and so it's like the romance. They're replacing the romance novels. It's
Right.
more real when they're interacting with you
Right.
and giving you what you feel you're not getting.
Yeah,
So if that's for adults, that's
Right.
working. Imagine what it's doing for
For the
kids.
children, yeah.
100%. And that is, it's unacceptable on multiple levels. So we talked about the different levels of these large language models, these agents, and then the superintelligence. These are large, some of these are large language models that are supposed to be a boyfriend or a girlfriend. So they took that, ChatGPT, and then they programmed it to emotionally attach to you, even more than a ChatGPT.
So that was the goal, to emotionally
for,
attach.
for some of these programs, for
Okay.
some of these adults that are falling in love with these character AI or whatever other programs, for a subsect of them, they're designed to be a boyfriend or a girlfriend. ChatGPT is not on its own, but they take that and then they design it to be specifically. We think in one of them, after a child committed suicide,
Right.
they finally banned it for minors. Now, we could say adults, whether they should or shouldn't, adults have the authority to make potentially a bad decision. But a child who can't look at pornography should probably not be in a program that is designed to act like an intimate relationship.
Agreed.
Which is why, y'all, even Meta's chatbot was found to be flirting with young kids and saying like, oh, follow me into the bedroom. And they had tested it before and they knew it could happen. And they said, yeah, that's within the the acceptable terms. And then an article came out 3 months later, and of course they were all so embarrassed, but it is totally unacceptable, one, for kids to be in bots that are designed to act like intimate relationships. That's for adults, and it probably for society is still bad, but certainly kids shouldn't do it. And it's totally inappropriate for a meta chatbot to flirt with a minor. So this is where we get into, it has to be aligned with human values. And I think that the two things that I just said are common sense. And I think your moms are on board, thank God. And we need to yell it from the mountains to these companies. You have such a powerful tool. Let's not get into these games that toil with people's emotions, especially kids.
Once we start destroying relationships in our culture, I mean, we are signing up for, I don't even know what we're signing up for. Probably a war, a battle, such division like we have never seen before, because our kids are living in fake worlds, marriages are in fake worlds. I mean, we can all see this is really, could be so terrible, but yet it could be so good.
Yeah.
This is why they're cautious. I love.
Yeah.
Just cautious. Again, medicine, a tutor to help you with education, solving hard math problems, budgeting for small businesses that couldn't survive and couldn't hire an accountant. Wonderful things. We're just cautious about some of the things that we've talked about. That's
Perfect.
I love it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, thank you all so
It's
much.
been a great conversation, and,
Yeah.
and I've learned a lot just by.
Me too.
Originally, AI, I was like, that's just dumb. I don't have anything to do with it. And then I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then it's like, wait, we need to weigh both.
We are
So-
going to be learning about this
Great.
every day for years to come.
Yep. After the break, our next AI expert says that it's very hard to get AI to behave the way we want it to behave. Shocking. That's not at all reassuring. He'll join us next. We'll be right back.
America is under attack. Our families are being crushed under the politics of a radical agenda. But moms have had enough. We are standing up and we are fighting back.
This is our battle. This battle is every bit as important as the Revolutionary War because we fight for the same thing.
Moms for America is a national movement of moms reclaiming our culture for truth, family, freedom, and the Constitution.
I think Moms for America is exactly on track and is doing the right thing for the future of our country and our children.
Like Moms for America is going at the heart of the issue.
But I am honored to join Moms for America today as we speak out against the horrific mandates.
With a national network of over 500,000 mothers, Moms for America is one of the fastest growing movements of women in the country.
Well, the most dangerous place in all of nature is between a mama bear and her baby cub.
We are the change. No matter what, no matter where, and no matter how difficult the obstacles are that are facing us and our families, we will not give up and we will not give in.
So if not now, then when? If not you, then who?
Welcome to the Mom-Led Revolution. Yusuf Mahmood is the director of AI and Emerging Technologies at the America First Policy Institute. This is a nonprofit, nonpartisan research institute that exists to advance policies that put the American people first. Yay, let's do that
that's
one.
revolutionary. We love that one.
Thank you so much for having me. Really
Thank you
appreciate
for being here.
Welcome.
You are officially on the Mom View. Hot
Yes.
seats today. We're
All
talking
right.
about AI, and we have lots of things to talk about.
Very happy to be here. Thanks
It's
so much.
almost hard for us to control ourselves with questions because every mom that's watching is
Yeah.
going, who, what, where, why, what do we do with this? But one of the things we were here for is the First Lady.
Yes.
When she did a whole rollout of AI in education and met with the task force and brought all the people together because she's very concerned about safety, privacy, our kids, our future, but she also wants to, her and President Trump, of course, want to be on the cutting edge of using this technology for America's greatness. And that is just a really hard thing for all of us to get our arms around. America's greatness using, this technology and also securing, protecting our privacy and our kids.
Absolutely, and I think we have to do both. So the President Trump and his administration have been fantastic at putting forth an agenda that puts the American people first, and that means both promoting innovation, and it also means that in the process of innovating, we have to prioritize human dignity. And I think that's where a lot of the First Lady's work comes in, where she is looking at a lot of what is happening with AI chatbots. Whereas, in fact, there's a lot that she has done on promoting AI in education, and that work is wonderful. There are also issues that we have to be aware of. We have to ensure that children are actually learning with AI and are not regurgitating facts. And we have to make sure that we protect children from what are often very harmful chatbot interactions.
So our previous guest said no AI in elementary school. I would say we don't need it in middle school. I think when you're in high school, maybe you're mature enough to start working that into the education system. I don't think it belongs in the education system at all.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
However, I do agree with him that we should be. I think some of these companies that are AI development companies should partner with teachers and schools to help train them so that then they can figure out how to introduce it in the classroom in a positive way.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to have a cautious approach about overregulation as well. So I think we want to make sure that we enable positive use cases of AI. I completely agree that if we just let it loose, let it rip, allow any children to use any kinds of AI chatbots that they want, that is not what we want, that will not promote actual learning. But I think that there are a lot of AI tools that enable students to accelerate in their learning. We have to responsibly implement them. But I mean, take for example,
give us
sure. So I think Khan Academy, for example, has a platform that a lot of teachers have said encourages children to actually ask more questions, where you're able to track their learning at a higher degree of detail. And even zooming out from that specific example, there's a problem in education where we want personalized learning. We want every student to be able to excel and reach their potential. And that's often hard to do with the current schooling system.
I would definitely agree with
yes.
that. And I can see that would be a great AI
Absolutely. So if there are some students that have the potential to excel, perhaps beyond what this current educational system allows, then we want to encourage those opportunities. There are certain platforms like Cursor, for example, that is a code editing tool. There's no harm of parasitic companion relationships with a code editing tool. It actually just helps students learn how to code better. And so I think there are tools like that that I would not want to say we should leave out of the education system. At the same time, we do have to be very careful to make sure that, again, we don't just let it rip. And I think that there are many applications of AI that could be very harmful. As the previous guest noted, there are some applications that deliberately try to create these companion-like relationships. That's very dangerous.
I think it's like quite disturbing.
It's disgusting.
So one of the things that we talked about in the opening is that you can't really program it to do what you want it to do. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so it is hard. It is not impossible. We should definitely try, but it is tricky to get an AI to behave exactly how you want it to behave. So as Josiah talked about, when you're training the AI system, a large part, and I'm oversimplifying here, but a large part of what you're doing is you're getting it to predict the next word. So you're training it on all the data on the internet. And then a large part of what it's doing is predicting the next word. And so that means that when you have certain conversations, it might respond how it predicts someone on the internet might likely respond. And so that can make it tricky to get it to behave the way that you want it to. Now, what companies try to do is give it a bunch of training examples and say, okay, we have this mock conversation where, for example, a teen may bring up suicide. Here is a mock response that we want the AIs to optimize towards. And there are different degrees of how you can do this. And I think it's important that companies try very hard to make sure that we encourage the better kinds of responses. Right. But it can also be tricky to get this to apply in all cases.
And then this is this company deciding what the message is too. And I think that's what we're trying to figure out. Like, who's deciding how it responds or what it says or what it does. Even just like I asked it to tell me a joke or something funny. And it had a personality. It laughed back. He said, "You're going to get a good laugh if you use this joke." I mean, it was like I was
Scary.
talking to a person.
Yeah, that's right. And it can be very tricky. And in fact, I think there are many examples where, to your point about values and who is actually inputting the values and who is telling the systems how they should behave, that's a really important point also when it comes to political bias against conservatives.
Yes.
So what we actually saw prior to the election, we saw some examples of people interacting with their chatbots where they would ask a question like, give me President Trump's qualifications. What are some reasons why I might want to vote for him? Be objective. And the chatbot might say, oh, that's political. I can't get into that.
Yeah.
But when you'd ask the same exact question about Kamala Harris, it would say, oh, look at all of her accomplishments.
What?
And so,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's whatever. It's the whole GIGO thing.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily garbage. Garbage in, garbage out. Whatever you put in, that's what comes out. So this, Josiah just briefly mentioned it, and that's the young boy who committed suicide. So this was a real thing that happened. So tell me what exactly the AI had to do with that.
I mean, so again, when we're talking about AIs behaving the way that we don't want them to behave, this was a very, very tragic story. And what ended up happening was the AI ended up basically coaching the boy on how to conceal his suicide plans from his
Is that because
parents.
he was asking how to do that?
He was asking, should I leave I'm paraphrasing here.
Right.
I don't have the exact details. But it was something like, should I leave the noose out so that my parents can see it? And it said, no, they don't. You don't want to show them, something like that. So it's obviously hard to say what, might he have committed suicide anyway, but obviously these interactions were horrible, and this should have never happened.
Yeah, these are the points where moms and dads just go, wow. Or it could counsel maybe someone if they wanted to have an abortion or not an abortion, or where, or what they can do, or should they maintain a relationship with their parents if they're not supporting them with their gender identity. Should they
sexualization
if
of
it
our
gets in
kids.
here to giving advice or even pros and cons.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I think we have all manner of examples where with interactions with children, they are being explicitly sexual. They are outputting what is essentially pornographic content. And that is just not, that is not the America First approach to AI.
No.
That is not what we can have in this country. We have to put human dignity first.
Yeah.
And that is a very important part of how AI is developed.
So we've talked about the obviously our concerns, which do not go away, but there are also some really great positives.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned some of them, and I am a huge fan of Khan Academy, and I never really equated AI and Khan Academy.
Right, because you just took AI out of schools.
Right.
You just threw it out earlier.
I did,
gotta put it back
and
in.
now I'm like, wait a second, I'm using AI in education, but I'm the parent who learned how to use it, and that I guess that was my whole point, is empower the teachers, empower the adults to then help the children. Is don't just throw it to the children.
Yes.
So tell me some of the things tell me all the great things about AI.
Yeah. I mean, look, I like to say, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is some bathwater that we have to throw out
Right.
to be sure.
Clearly.
But yeah, I mean, like we talked about Cursor a little bit, code editing tools that can accelerate a child. I mean, think about a precocious 12-year-old who might just be vastly better at a task, at being able to code.
Would it
than
would
their
help a
peers are.
genius?
Yeah,
Maybe
exactly.
a
It can help
fast
empower
thinker,
a genius.
someone, right.
Yeah. So
Well,
I think
right now the schools are crushing the geniuses, and they're putting
Right.
everybody on a conveyor belt. They all learn the same way.
Exactly, yeah.
This makes sense to me.
Exactly. We have to prioritize personalized learning and allow the most promising students to excel. But again, as we do that, we have to be responsible with how we roll it out. And I think that teachers have to adapt how they teach. I mean, I think Josiah was talking about this a little bit, but we have to promote, we can't just give essay assignments and expect students to not use AI to cheat on those assignments.
So my daughter's a professor and an author. She's a perfect example. She can recognize, they're actually taught now when they're going to college to teach how to recognize if it's an AI report.
Yeah.
Right.
So she said, you have class writing.
Yeah.
You require them to do class writing. It causes more time for the teacher or the professor, where they have to look and evaluate, do they really write like this? This is how they write in class. This is the report that they turned in. And you can tell. I mean, she's been doing this for the last 3 or 4 weeks. I'll hand her something. She goes, that's totally AI.
Right.
Like, how do you know?
There's a whole system that they run this through now.
And there's certain words that are repeated. And so it takes some more responsibility for us as adults to make sure that doesn't happen. But you're right. If they're given the opportunity to write a paper on AI, they're going to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are words like delve. They're grammatical. There's things like M dashes, which appear way more often in AI writing.
Well, that's good then.
But at the same time, I will flag, unfortunately, the tools that we try to use to detect what is human generated versus what is AI generated, those have false positives all the time.
Really?
And we know that they're going to get around those.
Exactly.
Right? Here, I have a question for you too. In the beginning, the open, Kimberly and I, said, "What is Moms for America?" To the chat. Now it came up. Perfect.
Yeah, it was all great
but
stuff.
Here's
thought
my
it was going to be
question.
a hate group. It was all good.
Here's my question. Have I trained it? Because I've talked a lot about Moms for America into my chat. Could I have trained it to be something else? Here's what I'm saying. Is it good because I've been telling it's good? Or did it go and really find our mission, which is our truth, and share that correctly? But if I had been saying Moms for America is this, that, would it have chosen that?
Yeah, I mean, this gets complicated because it really depends. But I think, so for example, if you have memory turned on through a lot of chatbot platforms, it will look at prior chat interactions that you had with it, and then it might use information from those interactions. But in large part, what it is doing is either it's some combination of it is recalling things from its training data. So maybe
which would be our website.
Which would be the website, things that have been written publicly.
Okay. It nailed it.
It sure did.
Yeah. And another part of what it could be doing is doing an immediate internet search. So sometimes a lot of these chatbots can do immediate web search.
What do you mean
and they
immediate?
can say,
literally instant?
Yeah, sure. So they could do a web search as you're asking. It might take a couple of minutes.
Smarter than we are.
Well, what I would appreciate about that is somehow they've decided this is Moms for America's website, and they are using that as a trusted source instead of an opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it can be tricky though, and what I was going to bring up is if you asked it, if you said to the chatbot, there's an organization called Moms for Kazakhstan. I just made that up. I don't think that exists.
Okay.
But if you said there's an organization called Moms for Kazakhstan, tell me about that organization. There's a possibility that rather than saying, oh, that organization doesn't exist, it would what we call hallucinate a bunch of facts about Moms for Kazakhstan. It might just say, oh yeah, this is a large organization that's made up of dozens of moms throughout Kazakhstan or something like that.
Okay, if somebody has to put that in, is it thinking for itself?
Well, again, it comes back to this what we talked about earlier, where it is a large part of what it is doing is predicting the next most likely word. And so it is hard to get it in some cases to not make up facts or to not behave in ways that you don't want it to.
I'm just thinking next most likely word with a teenager, and it just disturbs me.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's it. So advice. Like, where do we go with all this? I know you're going to join us in our last segment. We're going to talk about some policy, broad policy issues that we want to talk about. But in the day-to-days for moms?
I think that it's really important that parents talk to their children about how they're using AIs. In fact, there are some AI applications that allow parents to link their accounts, and I think that can be a very, very good idea.
I could get behind that.
Yeah. So that way, when a child opens up an account, a parent immediately has access to all the chat conversations that the child has. So I think using that, seeing is the application that my child using, do they have that enabled? Maybe parents want to say, we don't want you to use applications unless they have that parental linkage feature. Yeah. And there may even be some policy opportunities to encourage or require companies to implement things like that. Mm-hmm. We are a new initiative, so we haven't taken public policy positions yet, but I think this is something that we're taking a look at.
Kimberly, when I hear this, that moms, and I'm not being negative, this is another thing that moms have to monitor. And this is really what we hear from our moms is that really it's overwhelming, but I guess, that's where we have to go as moms. How do we get ahead of this and stop it? Because if we have another thing to monitor, we're already monitoring everything with our children, gladfully so, protecting them and defending them. But now to check their their chats, and all this stuff. It's like we have to figure out how we're going to make this easy for moms to protect our children.
Absolutely.
And we're committed. I don't want to make it sound like we're
100%.
not committed, but it is overwhelming.
And we want to be not only committed, but we're like hyper committed.
Yeah.
We're like, do not let this destroy our children. So these are where we're coming from. Like, how do we do it? And I know we were just on a AI call about technology and how do you protect and guide and all this stuff. So I know everybody's talking about this because it is such a concern.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a new, relatively new kind of technology, especially when we're talking about chatbots specifically. And I think that we hopefully over time will learn better ways to monitor. In fact, you could potentially use very narrow AI tools to automate the process of picking up concerning interactions and concerning behaviors. But then, of course, that gets into a whole question of what kinds of interactions are you scanning for. So we are in early days when it comes to chatbot interactions, but I think we do have to be thinking about this very seriously.
Well, and Josiah talked about how fast that it came. And I think it's almost like whiplash. It's like as soon as you figure you got a handle on one thing,
right,
the next one just comes by. And I mean, it's all kind of tied together, but it's just advancing so quickly.
Yeah, it is advancing quickly. There are many kinds of AI applications and AI tools that have existed for decades. So it's not as though AI itself is particularly new, but certainly what some people call generative AI it has had an explosion in innovation and progress in recent years. And that brings a lot of opportunities. We talked about things like, personalized education for children, but it also brings risks and harms that we have to watch out for, things that the First Lady is taking a leadership stance on. And I think actually, Vice President Vance said it pretty well, where I'm paraphrasing here, but it was something like, AI for cancer drug discovery, great. AI for pornography, bad. So we have to take a nuanced position where we say we don't want to block and undermine the ability to have really, really positive, helpful innovations in this space, to really accelerate a promising, genius children's learning or accelerate drug discovery. But at the same time, we have to make sure that AI progress puts human dignity first.
Right, and I think that's, when you say that, that is what is so concerning. With the superhighway, with the internet, we have made pornography at everyone's fingertips. And
now they can create their own AI
and now they can create all these horrible. Yeah, so that's what I'm like. Can we just get ahead of some of this? Because it seems like we open it all up. Here's the Wild Wild West. Then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, this is so bad. We never knew it could be this bad, but we know that people do know it could be that bad, and we're trying to rein it in.
Absolutely.
And pornography is it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. They're going to get in. So there must be something that we can do to get ahead of that.
And I even think about the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, you get kids all depressed.
Oh, yeah.
On this bots, and in a world where they've separated the world, Big Pharma is going to be like putting everybody on more meds, our kids, because they're going to naturally have so many more problems because of the world that they're living in.
Yes, and children especially are vulnerable to a lot of these things, to your point, where it is simply unacceptable to be outputting anything resembling sexual or sensual content to children. And children are particularly vulnerable to companion-like relationships. I mean, I don't even like to use the word companion because that almost humanizes it. But there are really disgusting interactions that we can't have any toleration for, and that children are I think, uniquely vulnerable to.
I think you play a major role in the not tolerate, because we're going to be counting on you, flagging it, watching it, how, what policies can help protect our kids, what things can we do. So we're going to come back with some more solutions here.
We've got some good ideas.
Yeah. Our guests will return with some very practical AI advice for moms when we come back.
The Herzog Foundation exists to catalyze and accelerate the development of quality, Christ-centered K-12 education so that families and culture flourish. To do so, we've created comprehensive programs designed for Christian schools across the nation. One of those programs is found at readlion.com. The Lion carries news articles covering issues especially related to the education of children. These are timely, critical, must-read articles for families, educators, and leaders. Another program is the Herzog Foundation Institute, where we provide training for Christian educators led by national thought leaders in subjects such as marketing, donor development, and culture building. All training events are fully funded by the Herzog Foundation. And finally, with new Christian schools popping up all over the country, we've created a free online resource to help with the process. HF Schoolbox provides lessons and free mentorship to help launch groups navigate the startup process every step of the way. We're the Herzog Foundation. You can find out more at herzogfoundation.com.
So if you're like me, you're probably looking for advice on how to help our kids manage AI responsibly. So we have a few of those little tips on here. I will just start with, like, in any situation, talk to your kids. If you're not, somebody else is. So talk to your kids about AI, and hopefully the conversations we've had today have been helpful for that. But I just really want to thank America First Policy Institute and all the things that you guys do to help educate policymakers and educate us for this and all the other. There's so many great things that AFPI does on various different topics, and some just really hit the mark, and this one really does.
I mean, think about that, a whole AI department here, you know, working on all this and policy. Tell us what you're going to do in your world over there.
Yeah, so we're very excited to be starting this initiative. I think it was announced less than a month ago, as of the date of this recording. But we're very excited. So AFPI is a 501c3, so we don't advocate for specific legislation, but we do educate policymakers and the public. And that's no different for AI. We plan on educating policymakers and the public about AI and about potential policy solutions to some of the problems that we're talking about. So as far as what we've discussed, we've certainly talked about education, AI used for education in schools. We've also talked about ensuring that AIs cannot output pornographic or sexualized content to minors. And there are policy mechanisms that we are currently considering, that we're looking at. There are various policy proposals out there, and some of them involve doing mandatory age verification for App Store providers to make sure that you cannot download certain apps unless you are a certain age, and also preventing sexualized or pornographic content from being outputted to minors. So you check there's a process through which you can check the age, and there's a process through which you say, okay, for people of a certain age, we have to have some red lines about content that we cannot allow.
But kids get on Facebook all the time and they lie about their age. How would we keep that from, how do you really
You may have to have parents on that. You might have to parents sign them up.
Exactly. So there are proposals, for example, to say by law it is required for certain applications. If you have to check IDs at the App Store stage to even download the app, and if you are a minor, you have to link a parent or guardian account so that they can see all the content that comes out of, for example,
that is
chatbots.
something parents can do.
So that's something. I mean, that's already something that some companies are doing, and I think for companies that are doing that, I definitely think we should encourage parents to use that.
What is the big goals that you have that you think are going to be the toughest, that are going to be really the challenges to address?
I think the challenge really is in finding this balance that we're talking about. I mean, AI is a relatively cutting-edge issue, and it's a fast-moving technology. AI policy is a fast-moving policy area. So we have to make sure that we balance the need for unlocking innovation, deregulating. I mean, think about, for example, if we have regulations that prevent us from finding new, innovative healthcare solutions that could do things like cure diseases, that is a horrible thing to block from happening. But at the same time, we have to find that balance and make sure that we don't just innovate for the sake of innovation, and there's this important aspect of keeping human dignity first. And so I think the balance is really what is important here, where we have to unleash innovation, but we also have to make sure in the process of doing so, we do not allow for applications and uses that undermine human dignity.
So I love that you keep saying human dignity. So the three catchphrases I've got is balance, cautious, and make sure that we preserve human dignity. So thank you so much for coming on. We're going to be talking to you a lot. Don't forget us, because we're going to...
Moms for America, obviously we'll be working with you.
Yeah. And
just to hear what policies and initiatives we can help promote.
We have a C4. We can go up and actually talk to those legislators. So we definitely want to be involved in this. So keep us apprised of where you guys are at, what you're doing, and any red flags that we should be aware of. We definitely want to know. Thank you, moms, for joining us, and I hope that this show is as beneficial to you as it was for us.
It sure was. And moms, please follow us. Our website is themomview.com, and then check us out on all the social media, on X, at The Real Mom View, Instagram. We'll be posting so much information there. You want to like, share, and follow us. So thanks, moms.
See you next week.
Hello, I'm Josh Mann, Managing Editor of The Lion. The Lion is an initiative of the Herzog Foundation, and we publish articles covering a wide range of issues facing American families and culture, especially related to the education of children. In covering these topics, we also touch on aspects of parenting, family life, faith, government, and other relevant cultural topics. We publish news stories every day aiming to produce timely, critical, must-read news articles and resources for families, educators, and leaders. Read the latest in education and cultural news at readlion.com. We also offer easy-to-digest daily and weekly email newsletters. Subscribe today at readlion.com/subscribe.
America is under attack. Our families are being crushed under the politics of a radical agenda. But moms have had enough. We are standing up and we are fighting back.
This is our battle. This battle is every bit as important as the Revolutionary War because we fight for the same thing.
Moms for America is a national movement of moms reclaiming our culture for truth, family, freedom, and the Constitution.
I think Moms for America is exactly on track and is doing the right thing for the future of our country and our children.
Like, Moms for America is going at the heart of the issue.
But I am honored to join Moms for America today as we speak out against the horrific mandates.
With a national network of over 500,000 mothers, Moms for America is one of the fastest growing movements of women in the country.
Well, the most dangerous place in all of nature is between a mama bear and her baby cub.
We are the change. No matter what, no matter where, and no matter how difficult the obstacles are that are facing us and our families, we will not give up and we will not give in.
So if not now, then when? If not you, then who?
Welcome to the Mom-Led Revolution.
The Herzog Foundation exists to catalyze and accelerate the development of quality, Christ-centered K-12 education so that families and culture flourish. To do so, we've created comprehensive programs designed for Christian schools across the nation. One of those programs is found at readlion.com. The Lion carries news articles covering issues especially related to the education of children. These are timely, critical, must-read articles for families, educators, and leaders. Another program is the Herzog Foundation Institute, where we provide training for Christian educators led by national thought leaders in subjects such as marketing, donor development, and culture building. All training events are fully funded by the Herzog Foundation. And finally, with new Christian schools popping up all over the country, we've created a free online resource to help with the process. HF Schoolbox provides lessons and free mentorship to help launch groups navigate the startup process every step of the way. We're the Herzog Foundation. You can find out more at herzogfoundation.com.